The scent of freshly polished wax, mixed with the cold perfume of marble, hit Elena's nose the moment she pushed open the heavy door. The mansion didn't make a sound, as if it had long forgotten how. Elena stepped inside, clutching a folder tightly to her chest like a shield. No voices, no presence, but everything was there. Velvet chairs aligned with meticulous precision, thick castle-like drapes, and a chandelier that glittered like frozen light. And yet, the house felt empty in a way Elena couldn't name, as though time itself had once lived here and then chosen to stop. She gently closed the door behind her, the creak of the hinge slicing through the vast quiet. Her footsteps echoed on the stone floor, sharp and lonely. The uniform she wore pinched slightly under her arms, still smelling of cheap fabric softener. Elena was a cleaner, not new to luxury homes, not unfamiliar with silence, but something about today felt off. She opened her task sheet, wiped down the living room windows, tidied the library, cleaned the downstairs bathrooms. Simple morning, nothing unusual, until a sound broke through the silence. Crying, distant, high-pitched, soaked in desperation, not a sound that could be ignored. Elena froze, spine rigid, heart tightening, as if the air itself had begun to cry. The sound came again, clearer this time, as if the very walls were carrying it. A cry without shape, only feeling, urgent, frantic, older than the house itself. Elena tightened her grip on the folder, then set it down on the nearby table and moved toward the long hallway the sound seemed to call from. The air turned colder, the walls too clean, too perfect, no trace of life, as if someone had scrubbed until memory itself was erased. But that cry, it persisted, aching and raw, and for reasons even Elena couldn't explain, she couldn't turn away. The door at the end of the hallway opened without resistance, unlocked. A bedroom? No, a nursery. Soft cream light, sheer white curtains, pale yellow wallpaper with angels and vines. The kind of room pulled from catalogs designed to impress, not to comfort. At the center stood a white crib, and inside a baby girl only a few months old, maybe less, writhing in a nest of satin blankets like she didn't belong. Her face was flushed, her hands curled in the air as if searching for something unnamed. Elena didn't think, didn't ask permission, didn't check for cameras. She just stepped forward, bent down, and lifted the child with both hands. Slowly, carefully, completely. The baby nestled against her chest, as if she'd known that warmth all along. And then, silence. Not the eerie silence from before. This was a different kind, a fragile kind of peace. Like a small soul finding home after being lost. "What do you think you're doing with my daughter?" The voice, low, rough, cut through the air behind her. Elena froze. She turned slowly. In the doorway stood a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair neat but slightly disheveled, like he hadn't slept in days. He wore a white shirt half tucked into gray slacks, no tie, arms crossed. His face was sharp, with under-eye shadows that spoke of long nights. But what made Elena take a half step back wasn't his presence, it was his gaze. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the baby in her arms. The silence stretched like a wire pulled taut. Elena instinctively held the child closer, but didn't lower her. She was crying. "No one was around. I just wanted to comfort her," she said, voice quiet but steady. He didn't reply right away. He just stared at the way Mia's cheek was pressed to Elena's chest, at the tiny hand gripping her collar like a lifeline. A long moment passed. Then he exhaled, not in relief, but like trying to hold on to something slipping away. "My name is Daniel Whitmore," he said softly, "and you're not the nanny." Elena nodded. "Today's my first day. I'm here for housekeeping." Daniel watched her a second longer, then turned and walked away. He said nothing else. The door behind him remained open, as if even he hadn't yet decided who was supposed to enter or leave. Time passed slowly after that. Elena heard no footsteps, no doors opening. She lulled Mia to sleep, then continued cleaning like nothing had happened. vacuuming carpets already spotless, dusting shelves untouched by human hands. She waited for a summons from a supervisor, a dismissal, or at least a condemning glance, but none came, only the same silence now breathing in rhythm with her own. At exactly 11 o'clock, Elena stepped into the kitchen. On the black granite countertop sat a steaming cup of coffee, a closed folder, and a small note written in firm, slanted ink. Library, 12 p.m., DW. No greeting, no name, but Elena understood. At 12 sharp, she pushed open the library door. The air smelled of old leather, wood, and paper left too long in sunlight. Daniel stood by the bookshelf, back turned. He wore the same clothes from the morning, but somehow looked older. "Sit," he said without turning around. She obeyed. "Most people who did what you did today would have been fired by now," he said after a pause, voice steady. "I know," she replied plainly. He exhaled lightly, then turned. A folder rested in his hands. "I have two options for you. You can continue with housekeeping, part-time hours, standard wage. Or," he placed the folder on the desk and pushed it toward her, "you can take care of Mia, full-time, room upstairs, 2 days off every 2 weeks, triple salary." Elena's eyes widened, but her body stayed still. "Why me?" she asked, almost a whisper. Daniel looked at her slowly. "I don't know," he said, "but she does." Elena moved upstairs that same afternoon. The room was small, bright, with a window that overlooked the back garden. It smelled of old wood, fresh paint, and something she couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe. She didn't bring much: a few clothes, a notebook, and the quiet caution she always carried with her. The days that followed settled into a gentle rhythm. Early mornings, warming bottles, playing with Mia under the soft morning light, whispering stories in the living room. The once cold house began to breathe again. The soft patter of footsteps, quiet giggles, the occasional hum floating out of the kitchen. Elena drew open the curtains each morning, let the breeze in through hallways once sealed, turned on soft jazz while cooking. Daniel started appearing more often, at first by coincidence, then more deliberately. He stood in doorways watching Elena feed Mia, tie her tiny ponytails, or doodle beside her. He said little, but his eyes were no longer distant ice. One afternoon, while dusting the bookshelves, Elena found an envelope tucked far behind a row of hardcovers. No recipient name, but the elegant script on the back stopped her cold. "Read this if I'm ever gone," is a letter from Daniel's late wife. Elena sat down, unfolded it. Ink blurred in places, as if written through tears. A confession that Mia wasn't Daniel's biological child, that she'd kept it secret out of fear, but had loved the baby the moment she saw her. "I know you love her too, even if you never said it. And if you're reading this, I just hope you choose to keep loving her, not because of blood, but because she deserves to be loved." Elena closed the letter and slid it back exactly where it was, but something in her heart had shifted, not with drama, but with the weight of knowing she now carried a truth too heavy to ignore. Daniel changed after the letter. Not suddenly, but unmistakably. He spoke less, slept less, and spent long hours locked in his study. Mia still laughed with him, still reached out with chubby hands calling, "Da." But Daniel looked at her as if trying to find something he no longer believed was there. Elena didn't ask. She recognized that look. She knew that kind of drifting. And she also knew you can't reach into someone's fracture before they're ready to heal. That morning, as she was dressing Mia, Daniel appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk," he said. Elena turned, silent. "I think I can't keep going like this. You should go." The words fell like stone. She didn't cry, didn't argue, just a slow nod. "Are you sure?" "Yes. I'll pay your full salary. You can stay a few days if you need to figure things out." Elena pressed her lips together. "Who will care for Mia?" "I'll find someone." She looked at him for a long time. "You're not just letting go of an employee," she whispered. "You're letting go of the only person who's ever loved that child, without conditions." Daniel didn't answer. His eyes wandered somewhere behind her, where no one stood. Elena bent down, kissed Mia's forehead as she slept in her crib. Then she stood and walked out. This time, the door closed without a single goodbye, and with it, something unspoken left too. Rain came the night Elena left. Not the kind that crashes and screams, but the quiet kind, the kind that sinks, as if the sky itself had collapsed with the weight of a heart that just lost what mattered most. Daniel stood alone in Mia's room, watching the child sleep, clutching the stuffed animal Elena once gave her. Mia no longer laughed, no longer called out. No one needed to say it. Daniel knew she was looking for her, and he was too. For 3 nights, Daniel read the old letter again and again. Each time, the words felt heavier, closer. He had thought he was strong, but it turned out the only thing that had ever made him strong was the woman he let walk out without a word. On the 4th night, he didn't sleep. Instead, he pulled on his coat, wrapped Mia in her soft blanket, and drove through the pouring rain. He had known Elena's address for a while, never admitted it, not even to himself. The building was old, no doorbell. Daniel knocked 3 times, firmly. Elena opened the door in a loose sweater, hair tousled from sleep. She said nothing, just stood there, eyes wide as she saw him, soaked, trembling slightly, and Mia sleeping peacefully in his arms. "I don't know how to live without you," Daniel breathed. "And I don't know how to teach her to live without you either." Elena didn't answer, but her hands reached out, gently taking the child. And in that quiet gesture, she gave him a second chance. Not with words, but with trust. They didn't return to the mansion. Daniel sold it in less than a week, never walking through its rooms for one last goodbye, never hesitating. He signed the papers, handed over the keys, and left with Elena and Mia, 2 suitcases, a backpack full of stuffed animals, and a grip that never let go. The new house was small, white, with pale blue shutters and a garden where the grass still grew wild. Inside, the walls were freshly painted, the floors creaked softly, and the air smelled faintly of licorice and something gentler, like beginning again. Elena walked through it for the first time in silence. The kitchen had a window facing the backyard. Mia's room sat right next to hers. Everything was simple, but it fit, like it had always waited for them. "How does it feel?" Daniel asked, standing at the threshold, still holding a bag of soil. Elena didn't answer right away. She closed her eyes, breathed in. "Perfect," she said. The days that followed moved like an unchoreographed dance. Who brewed the coffee? Who changed the diaper? Who fed Mia breakfast? Nothing was assigned, yet everything found its rhythm. Daniel started cooking, still too salty, slightly burnt, but always trying. Elena left sticky notes on the fridge with smiley faces and doodles. Mia ran between them, carrying laughter and life. One Sunday morning, Daniel handed Elena a small piece of paper, an enrollment flyer for a nearby early childhood education program, with a handwritten note. "You've got what it takes. Go for it." Elena held the paper like treasure. She used to think dreams were a luxury, but now someone believed they were within reach. That night, she started filling her notebook. Lesson plans, game ideas, short stories for children. Daniel sat beside her, saying nothing, just pouring tea and resting his hand near hers. No pressure, no expectations, just presence. And that was when Elena realized life hadn't begun the day they met. It began the day they chose to stay. There was no engagement, no white dress, no flower-laced chapel. Just a windy morning in the backyard, Elena watering the plants, when Daniel approached, holding a small wooden box. She looked at him, puzzled, hands still damp with dew. "No ring," he said before she could ask, "just this." He opened the box. Inside was a single pressed flower between 2 pages. Pale lavender, edges slightly broken. Elena recognized it instantly. The one Mia had picked on a picnic months ago when the 3 of them lay on the grass, laughing as if sorrow had never existed. "I don't have anything grand to offer you," Daniel continued, eyes steady on hers. only everything I have and everything I am is here, with you, and her. And that's all I know how to give." Elena didn't speak. She took the flower, touched it gently with the tip of her finger as if it might crumble. Then she looked up, slowly. "I never needed a ring," she whispered, "just someone brave enough to stay." Daniel nodded, and when he stepped forward to embrace her, everything went quiet. Not because the wind stopped, but because the world finally aligned. There was no grand dress, no embossed invitations, no live band or flower-strewn aisle. Just a sunlit morning beneath blooming trees, mismatched wooden chairs gathered around a small handmade platform. Elena walked barefoot on dew-kissed grass, wearing a simple white linen dress that moved gently in the breeze. In her hair were wildflowers, crookedly tucked in by Mia's clumsy fingers. The little girl led the way, holding a bouquet they'd picked from the park the day before. Uneven stems, lopsided blossoms, but full of meaning. At the platform, Mia turned and handed the bouquet to her mother with a wide grin. Elena knelt, hugging her tightly and whispering something only the two of them would ever understand. Then she stood and saw Daniel, waiting. No suit, no tie, just a rolled-up white shirt, barefoot, eyes locked on her. Few words were said. When it was their turn to speak, Elena held no paper, made no formal vows. She simply held Daniel's hand and said, "I won't promise things will always be easy, but I promise to choose you every day. In silent mornings and angry nights, even if we drift, my heart won't." Daniel squeezed her hand. "I didn't know what love was until I saw you love her. No conditions. You taught me what it means. And now I just want to spend my life learning how to do the same." There were no rings, just a long embrace, a gentle kiss, and the quiet decision to stay, one they'd never need to repeat. Life after the wedding didn't change much. They still woke early, brewed coffee in a sunlit kitchen, took Mia to school, and bickered playfully over forgotten toilet paper. They didn't try to be anyone else, just learned to exist together, simple and real. Elena began her internship at a nearby preschool. In the afternoon, she came home with chalk dust on her hands and eyes, still bright from some silly kid's story she hadn't finished telling. Daniel waited for her in the living room, Mia often hunched over a drawing pad, utterly focused. One day, while unpacking Mia's backpack to wash a stained jacket, Elena found a crumpled sheet of paper. Mia had drawn 3 stick figures in wobbly crayon lines, one tall, one medium, one very small, all standing together beneath a big round sun, smiling wide. Below, in clumsy mixed-up letters, "Mama, Papa, me." Elena froze, not because of the drawing itself, but because of its quiet certainty. Innocent, unhesitating. In Mia's world, there was no need for DNA, no need for matching names, only presence. Daniel stepped into the room, saw her holding the paper, her eyes misty. "She understands," Elena whispered. He nodded. "And I think she's teaching me to understand, too." Elena placed the drawing on the fridge, held up by a heart-shaped magnet. She didn't need a frame. That picture, with its crooked smiles and childlike color, had become their family's declaration. Chosen, built, loved. They didn't live a perfect life. There were days when dishes piled in the sink, schedules were forgotten, and Mia threw a tantrum because she wasn't allowed to wear her princess dress outside. Evenings when Elena cried after a failed lesson plan, and Daniel fell silent under the weight of work stress. But it was those days that truly made a life. Because in between the chaos were small, quiet moments Elena used to believe only existed in stories. Like Daniel making her ginger tea at 3 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. Or Mia climbing into their bed in the middle of the night, wedging between them, one leg over their stomachs, murmuring, "This is home." Elena didn't write those days down. She lived them. Sometimes they were filled with giggles as the 3 of them baked cookies and ended up dusted in flour. Sometimes they ended in exhausted silence on the floor, tangled together, saying nothing at all. She kept studying, Daniel kept working, But now, everything had a place to rest, not always in sync, but always together. One evening, while tidying Mia's pile of drawings, Elena found a page with crooked handwriting. "I love this home because it smells like mama, cookies, and peace." Elena needed nothing more. No perfect story, no grand ending. Just this, a life full of repeatable days where love didn't need proof, only presence. Some mornings, Elena woke before sunrise, sitting in the kitchen with a warm cup of tea, watching the first light touch the neighbor's rooftop. She didn't need alarms, didn't need reminders to feel grateful. Her body already knew this peace didn't come by chance, but from what they had chosen to hold onto, through decisions, through forgiveness, through staying. Mia had grown a little. She could read street signs now and often asked questions that made adults pause. Daniel still fumbled with ponytails, but kept trying until Mia laughed. One afternoon, Elena asked Mia, "If you had to tell someone about our family, what would you say?" Mia didn't look up from her drawing. She simply shrugged and said, "I'd say it's the place where love doesn't go away." Elena smiled, and in her heart, that answer was everything. Not because it was profound, but because it was true. Because after all, the misunderstandings, the silence, the almost goodbyes, there was still this, a family, not perfect, but real. A home didn't need to be big, only have someone waiting when you return. A child didn't need to be born of you, only held with your whole heart. And a partner didn't need to be flawless, only brave enough to stay. Love doesn't stay because of a vow. It stays because each morning someone chooses you again.